All right, so this video, we're going to read this second text. This is just to help you if it's helpful to hear someone read a text. So um, you don't have to watch this if you don't want to hear this read to you. I just wanted to provide this as a resource for those that it helps. So here we're going to read the article, Napoleon, Dictator of France. Author writes, the word dictator refers to a person who has absolute power, especially a ruler who was absolute, unrestricted control in a government. This definition proves that Napoleon was definitely a dictator, as he took power for himself. However, there were dictatorship characteristics that Napoleon did not enforce so strictly, or even ideas of freedom which he allowed, such as religious freedom. After Napoleon finally brought peace in Europe in 1802, he started on leaving his mark internally on France. One of the first internal affairs was his life consulship. He declared himself leader of France for the rest of his life, leaving him with absolute power in France as no one could challenge him as life consul. Then he furthers his position as dictator by having the right to nominate his successor, which would leave an unelected leader, also known as a dictator, and also proves that Napoleon was unchallenged in France. This takes away the idea of the people of France being able to elect their own leader that appeared in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen. After centralizing power, he then sets about by strengthening his power. The new Constitution of France seems to disprove that Napoleon was a dictator. For instance, the constitution that he sets up is a form of representative democracy with a separation of powers, such as the consul of state, who helps draw up legislation, and the legislature that gets to vote on such legislation. However, this did not give the people as much of a vote as it seemed, with the main bodies of government being formed by people Napoleon bribed to control. Even if they did not agree with Napoleon, he could go over their head on the matter and do what he wanted anyways. To his credit, Napoleon did promote the idea of democracy, not dictatorship. However, the voting system he set up was not democratic in the slightest. Napoleon's system only allowed those people to vote who paid for the right to vote. This did not allow poor people to vote or women. Even then, it is questionable whether the elections were fair, many people fearing punishment for voting against Napoleon because voting was not secret. The people in charge of counting votes would increase the number of people voting for Napoleon to please him. Napoleon did allow religious tolerance in France for all religions and allowed religion to be freely exercised in France by the great majority of citizens. Nevertheless, it strengthened Napoleon's powers as public worship had to be in conformity with police regulations, and the church became controlled by the government, whereby the clergy became servants of the government, being bound to the government by oath. The organic articles gave even more power over to the church to Napoleon because it limited the Pope's control over French bishops while state control increased. Napoleon even standardized church ideas, which were taught in schools, which scare the people into obeying Napoleon as the ideas make him seem like a god. In conclusion, it was clear that Napoleon was a dictator as he centralized power around himself, especially in his style of government and the constitution he sets up, where all power is given by Napoleon and no one could challenge that power. Even the freedom reforms introduced were fake to keep control of the people, and his real intentions were to make people loyal and obey him, either through fear of the police state set up or giving people a small taste of freedom to keep them happy.